Charlene, hello, Nicole Bradford. How are you, my friend? Oh. Hey, Lisa, welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Great to have you all here. Oh, all right, I messed that up. How about boom and boom? There we go. All right. So, Daniel, we're going to start with you, my friend. You and David talked about longevity. Tamir talked about our own tissues helping to personalize medicine. Penny shifted the dialogue to focus on human adaptability. And Ann and Dean ended up showing how lifestyle decisions can improve virtually every aspect of our lives. Will the real breakthroughs in health come from exponential technologies or from human agency, or do you think both?
I think it's got to be the technologies meeting the human system. I mean, oftentimes we can be overwhelmed with data. You could have your full genome. You can have every digital piece of you tracked, but that's not going to give you a healthier, longer life necessarily. As Dean and Ann mentioned, sometimes the low-tech elements, doing some mindfulness training, loving more, moving more, loving more, all those sometimes core human elements can be most important. But the real potential is to take some of these technologies and pull them together in new ways. And even when you have the technology, understand that the challenge is adapting it to the actual point of care. Let's say as a clinician, you may have the best set of data or app or wearable, unless it flows to me in a way that I can use it in the clinic and aligns with incentives, and the FDA can regulate it. You have a lot of human challenges, including the misaligned incentives when you may have a cure for a chronic disease, and that lowers the bottom line for that hospital system. So we have to understand the human system, the incentive system, and the technologies, and realize politics is all local, and it may need to apply only in a certain localized system, but that we can also democratize a lot of these tools around the planet to impact health.
Thank you. And a lot of questions, a lot of topics. I'm going to be reading quite a bit from my iPad, so please bear with me here. Charlene, you think a lot about organizations and the disruptive mindset. We've had a variety of speakers talking about organizational transformation, and you've been part of a number of those conversations. What would you say are two of the three key insights you've gained from these discussions, and where would you tell leaders in the audience to focus their efforts going forward?
Well, I think when you think about transformations, oftentimes you think about the technology, but transformations have people at the center of that. So a big takeaway was focus on the people and the impact, because your biggest constraint is how fast they can move. Another key insight was that leadership also has to change in exponential types of movements, because it's not leadership on an everyday basis. You have to shift the way you lead, and the way that you establish credibility today is not the way you used to do it in the past. So leadership has fundamentally changed. And how you establish trust, the way that you communicate, has to take into account the faster ways that people are using technologies today. And I think the third one is, it's great to talk about all the great new things out there, and it's great to be optimistic about this, but you also have to have that practical, pragmatic way. How are we going to move forward? It's great to talk about the moonshots, but how are we systematically going to make that path forward? And it's not enough to just say, we'll figure it out along the way. There's a lot to figure out, and the path may change. But that first step, what is the first and most important step we're going to take? And it doesn't have to be big. It could actually be very incremental and small, but it's important to take that first step.
And do you feel there's dramatic change taking place now? Are you seeing things shifting quickly, or is this something that seems to be happening more slowly?
I think the biggest difference is that people used to think transformation, disruption, exponential, that's for somebody else. And now everybody is saying disruption is something that we have to deal with. Exponentialism is something, even if I'm in the slowest moving possible industry you could imagine, is going to come and look for me too.
Gotcha. Thank you. Nicole Bradford, you are a great synthesizer, and a lot of your focus is on transformative technologies. So what are some of the themes you've seen in the various exponentials we've covered in the summit, and what are some of the areas you're most excited about going forward?
Well, so what's been really exciting is that, Peter talked about empathy, and we've talked about courage and character. And so what transformative technology is tech that can be used to support healthy human psychology. So it's actually taking all of the exponentials and turning them back on us to develop greater levels of self-awareness, and so that we can answer that fundamental human question, who am I? And it's that question that allows you to get to your massively transformative purpose and all of those things. So looking at the exponential tracks and just what was going on in the AI track and the human-centered internet track is more and more people turning these technologies back towards ourselves so that we can use them to know who we are and then use that to decide where we're going. And so what was exciting is the progress, and what I'm really looking forward to is a place where we don't just have the exponential mindset, but we're actually using the technology to enable and to train people into it by helping them know who they are.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about kind of where are we in terms of this? I mean, is technology actually starting to make a real material impact here, or is this something you think is still a few years out?
It's actually coming very quickly, because if you look at emotion recognition, behavior recognition, sensors, data, and that added to context, the psychological fit, the understanding of who a person is, right now the only people using this data are the ad sellers. But we should be using this. We should know ourselves as well as Facebook does. Your phone knows you better than your mom. You should have that information. And so it's actually moving very quickly. It's moving as quickly as emotion recognition and other AI things. And of course, the wearables and data sensors. Like, there's things where people are able to pick up emotion off skin. Like, you don't even have to be on skin to pick up biosignals. And so because of that, the inner landscape, folks, is absolutely revealed. And so we should be using that. But that's also why when we get to the question on, what are the dangers, it's like we really have to get the protections in place. But I think the benefit is worth the effort of doing this, because once we know ourselves, there isn't anything that we won't be able to do together.
Amazing. Thank you. Lisa, you focus on transformation in all forms, and another recurring theme throughout the summit has been the need for a change in mindset to achieve exponential change. Are there 2 or 3 insights that you can offer to help our attendees when they go back to their organizations and their families to help them encourage a greater exponential mindset?
Yeah, it's such a great question, Will, and it really ties into what Charlene and Nicole were just saying. Mindset is everything, and yet it's invisible. We don't often stop to think about it, and I appreciate throughout these last 3 days, there's been a lot of focus on the human side, even this notion of how do humans play into this exponential world and taking time for care, and that includes paying attention to our worldview, even asking questions of ourselves and others. How do we feel about the future? Are we optimistic? Are we excited? Are we nervous? Are we skeptical? There's data in that, and we don't pause, and that really is the lens by which we take in everything, by which we make all of our choices. Another key mindset question is, what is our sense of agency? Which has been another theme. Even the topic of create the future suggests you have agency, you have choice, you can shape the future. Not everybody believes that they can shape the future. That creates a really important gap that we have to pay attention to. Many people that have come here from all around the world have self-selected to be here. They are seeking out the future. They are curious and willing to learn about new technologies and how they're going to play out so that they can use that to make decisions going forward. But what about the people that are not here, that are going to be the recipients of that? Do they also feel that sense of agency? And that's what creates these gaps that are growing, that if not attended to, will instigate more fear, more worry, more anxiety. So I think it's a leader's responsibility to, first of all, be aware of their own point of view, and then how they model that for others, how they promote opportunities for agency. I'm often working with executives that want to create future-focused organizations, and they get excited about sessions like this, and then towards the end, as they think about going back or sharing it with the rest of the organization, I'll hear, well, the culture just won't let it happen. It just won't happen. And I'm often thinking, who's the culture? And where is that culture modeled from? Who's the they that's stopping this from happening? Aren't you the they? Right? You are the they. And so I think if we can be more aware of how we are embodying our mindset of possibility, but also with healthy skepticism, embracing critical thinking to bring about the future that we want, I think that will go so far in creating cultures where everybody feels that. It's not for a select few.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, all of us here have the opportunity to kind of model this and embody this when we go back to our families and our organizations, and to try to be change agents for helping people kind of think differently and see differently.
And I just want to